Husband left me with his mom to help with our newborn, but she did nothing except watch TV all day. When I kicked her out, she spread rumors about me having an affair with my neighbor. So, I'm in a real crap show with my Mill, Carla, and I'm honestly torn on whether I should feel like a total bit H or not. Carla's always been a nosy one, but she used to be sweet to me, so it never really got under my skin. I've been with my hubby for 6 years, married for 3, and about a month ago I gave birth to our little girl. My husband's in the military, so he shipped out shortly after our daughter was born and won't be back for a few months. I was bummed he had to leave so soon, especially since he was only around for the last couple weeks of my pregnancy. But, duty calls, and I'd never stand in his way. He left Carla with me, which I thought was a godsend at the time. Before he left, the 3 of us had a sit down, and we all agreed that Carla would stay with me instead of heading back home. I was pretty stoked because I don't really know anyone around here. We moved, I got knocked up like a few weeks later, so I didn't get a chance to make friends. Plus, my best friend since childhood lives across the country, and while we talk almost every day, it's not the same as having someone here. But things started going sideways after my husband left. Carla turned into a total freeloader. For the first few days, I was so sleep-deprived and overwhelmed that I barely noticed. Then it hit me, I was doing most of the housework and taking care of the baby. Carla'd just camp out in the guest room, yapping on the phone all day, only emerging for meals to tell me how great a cook I was before disappearing again. It was like she expected a 5-star hotel experience, complete with maid service. It didn't help that my neighbor, some young dude who inherited his aunt's house, decided to take up the piano and practiced at all hours. I swear his playing was so bad it could curdle milk. I used to complain about it to my husband before he left, and honestly, it was a small blessing when he deployed, just to get away from that noise. During our pre-deployment powwow, my husband and I figured Carla would help out around the house. But here I was doing double duty because she refused to lift a finger. After 2 weeks, I finally confronted her. She claimed she was waiting for me to tell her what to do, which is the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I mean, she has eyes, right? She could see I was drowning. This woman raised 2 kids of her own, including my husband. Surely she remembered what it was like having a newborn. And on top of that, she had the audacity to act like she was doing me a favor by gracing me with her presence. I chalked it up to a misunderstanding and started giving her specific tasks. She'd either do them way later than I asked, or I'd end up doing them myself because she forgot. One time, I asked her to sterilize the baby bottles, and she left them soaking in cold water for hours. Another time, I asked her to put away the laundry, and she just dumped the clean clothes on the guest bed, where they sat for days. It was infuriating. She'd always have some excuse, like she got caught up watching her favorite soap opera or chatting with her sister, who, by the way, is just as much of a busybody as Carla. The whole situation was a dumpster fire. So, at the end of the month, I told her this wasn't working and she needed to leave. I figured if I was doing all the work anyway, I might as well be alone. At least then I wouldn't have to cater to her. 2. I could just focus on the baby and myself, maybe catch up on some sleep, or finally start that online yoga class I signed up for but never had time to do. Carla wasn't thrilled. She accused me of being ungrateful, saying I should be thankful. She even offered to help. She expected to help with the baby while I did all the housework. Like what? I'm the mom. I carried this baby for 9 months, went through labor, and now I'm supposed to hand her over to someone else? If she really wanted to help, she'd tackle the chores so I could bond with my baby. It was clear she had her own agenda, and it had nothing to do with helping me. It was like she thought she was on some kind of extended vacation, with me as her personal chef and housekeeper. The whole thing felt so gross. After I told her to leave, she said she had nowhere to go. She'd already ended her lease, assuming she'd be living with me long term. That confirmed it. She was a freeloader. She didn't want to pay rent, so she weaseled her way into my home under the guise of helping me. She probably thought she hit the jackpot, free room and board, plus someone to wait on her hand and foot. And the worst part was, she acted like she was doing me some huge favor by staying here. I was furious. I told her I didn't give a damn about her situation. I just wanted her out. She finally left a couple of days ago, and I immediately called my parents, begging them to come help. They live in another state, so they were only here for the birth and stayed 3 days after, leaving the day before my husband. They had offered to stay longer, but I turned them down because I didn't want them to neglect their store, and Carla had already promised to move in and take care of everything. They had owned a small grocery store for years, and it was their livelihood. I knew they were relying on my uncle to cover for them, but he had his own family to take care of. Still, I felt bad asking them to drop everything and come back so soon. But after kicking out Carla, I was desperate. My parents took the next flight here and have been with me since. Thankfully, Uncle is holding down the fort at the store. He's been a real lifesaver, and I'm so grateful to have him in my life. I don't know what my parents would have done without him all these years. Anyway, it's been about 4 days since I kicked out my mill. I told my husband everything, how useless Carla was. I hadn't told him earlier because I didn't want to stress him out, knowing he was relying on his mom to help me. He said I did the right thing. But last night, I got a barrage of texts from Carla saying I ruined her life. I was confused, so I called my husband. Apparently, he told his family to cut her off, and now she really had nowhere to go because she'd been staying with his uncle, who also kicked her out. That's why she was so pissed. Turns out, she tried to sabotage our relationship by telling my husband I was up to no good while he was away. She told him I was having an affair with a next-door neighbor, suggesting he get a paternity test and come back ASAP, because she wasn't sure the baby was his. She also claimed she left because she found out about the affair, and I kicked her out to cover my tracks before my husband found out and left me. These were some seriously messed up lies, meant to destroy my marriage. Thankfully, my husband didn't fall for it. I'm so relieved he didn't even need to confront me to know it was BS. It was also pretty obvious she was lying because our next-door neighbor is this annoying 20-something who plays the piano terribly all weekend. I complained about him to my husband when I first moved in, so if Carla really knew me, she'd have picked someone else to be my supposed lover. Plus, the guy is a total slob. He leaves his trash cans out for days, and his lawn is always overgrown. There's no way I'd be attracted to someone like that, even if I were the type to cheat, which I'm not. After Carla's call, my husband called his family, told them everything, and said he didn't want anyone talking to Carla. If they did, we'd cut them off. He gave them an ultimatum, and it worked. Now nobody's talking to Carla, and even her own brother kicked her out. After our talk last night, I thought she deserved it and blocked her. But in her texts, she accused me of ruining her life. This morning, she showed up at my door, demanding I let her in. She said I was the reason she lost her home, and she needed a place to crash for a few days before finding an apartment nearby. She wanted to visit on weekends to see her granddaughter, regardless of our issues. I told her that after what she did, she wouldn't even get to see her son when he came back, and she needed to leave before I called the cops. But she refused, throwing a tantrum like a child, stomping her foot and yelling that it was unfair we expected her to do chores instead of playing with the baby. When we discussed this, we were clear we'd split chores, with her taking on the time-consuming tasks and I'd care for the baby. She made her own assumptions and ended her lease without talking to us. How is this our fault? And 49 isn't that old. If she felt that old, she shouldn't have offered to help. Things got heated and the argument got nasty. She tried to force her way in with her bags, and I had to slam the door after a lot of effort. I mean, she tried to ruin my marriage while I was caring for our 1-month-old, but maybe I do owe her somehow. After I shut the door, she started crying, saying she had nowhere to go and didn't want to waste money on hotels. She begged me to forgive her, saying she needed someone. I almost gave in because I'm still emotional from giving birth, but my parents told me not to. They said she already tried to ruin my marriage, and I shouldn't let her back in. We ignored her until she left, and now I feel bad. I could have let her stay for a few days. My husband and parents say I did nothing wrong, but I'm not sure. So, IDA for not letting my mill move in after she was cut off by her family because of our fight? Edit, my Phil isn't around, he passed away a few years ago. My husband has been supporting his mom since. Her husband didn't leave her much because he died after a long illness, so most of his money went to healthcare. He left her their house, which she sold to move into a small apartment. But she ended that lease, too. My husband has been sending her money, and she's lived comfortably. But now that he's cut her off, I don't think he'll send her money. I hope she's saved enough from the house sale to live on her own, or she'll be in trouble financially. Update 1. Hey everyone, things have been pretty chill lately. Haven't heard from Carla since she left the other day. It's been 3 whole days, and I was starting to think maybe she learned her lesson and was gonna stay away for good. But that was just wishful thinking, I guess. I mean, she was bawling her eyes out, and she's not exactly the type to just roll over and give up. Plus, like I said before, she's always been a bit of a busybody. So, yeah, she somehow managed to get some of my husband's family on her side, and now they're coming after me. It's mostly just a bunch of old ladies around her age, her little gossip circle. You know, the ones who think every word that comes out of her mouth is gospel. It's basically just a couple of women from my husband's family who sit around with her and trash talk everyone at every family gathering. So, naturally, they're taking her side in all of this. I bet they don't even believe her story, but they just want to be part of the drama. That's why they're targeting me, so they can be the ones being talked about instead of doing the talking. It's like they're desperate for attention or something. It's actually kinda sad when you think about it. They started blowing up my phone with texts from different numbers, and I had to block them all because they were just so nasty. They accused me of actually having an affair with my neighbor, saying I was just mad that Carla found out the truth. They said I was manipulating my husband into not believing his own mother, and that I even got her ostracized from the family. But they also said it wouldn't last long because I couldn't hide the truth forever. Look, I don't really care that they're trying to mess with me. But the fact that they're trying to trash my character like this really pisses me off. I talked to my husband about it, and he said he's going to try to do something, but I know he can't. He's already done what he could by telling his family not to talk to Carla. But this is out of his control. These women have made it clear they're on Carla's side, and I just have to ignore them. It's just that I'm so emotional right now that everything is getting to me, and I hate it. I can't help it. My parents are here for me, and my husband said he'll try to visit ASAP. Until then, I just have to keep ignoring these people and not let it get to me. I know my truth, and I know who I am, so I'm just trying to keep my head cool. Update 2. Okay, so I just realized something weird has been going on. It's been a week since my last update, and for the past 4 days, I haven't gotten any texts or anything from Carla and her crew. So I'm starting to think they might have finally given up on trying to get under my skin. Honestly, it's a relief. I was starting to get used to the constant harassment, but it was still draining. The last few texts I got from her and her friends were on social media. They were saying they were going to make sure the truth came out and that they were going to talk to my neighbors to expose me as a horrible person and reveal how long the affair had been going on. In their minds, they were totally convinced it was real. Bless their delusional hearts, seriously. They seemed so sure of themselves, it was almost comical. I wasn't really threatened by any of it because, well, I know the truth. And after talking to my husband who told me not to worry about it, he believed me 100% and nothing would change that. I knew I had nothing to worry about. It was reassuring to know that he had my back, no matter what. He's always been my rock, and this whole situation just proved it even more. My husband also talked to the rest of his family, and they reached out to tell me they also cut ties with the women siding with Carla. They were fully on my side, and I felt really good about it all. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I finally felt like I could breathe again, like I could just focus on my baby and my life without this constant drama hanging over me. After I found out that Carla and her so-called friends had been cut off too, they stopped texting me. I guess they realized nothing good would come of it, and the drama wasn't worth it. Maybe they finally realized they were fighting a losing battle. Or maybe they just got bored and moved on to some other poor soul to harass. Who knows? So, the very last text I got from any of them was 4 days ago. Then, in the evening, I got a really short email, probably from Carla. She said she found an apartment and was going to make me suffer for ruining her life and making her family hate her. She called me a lazy cow and said she didn't know why her son chose someone disgusting and ugly over his mother. But she was sure it wouldn't last and said she was already looking for new people to replace me since my only duty to my husband was done and he could move on to better pastures. So, she really believed that just because I had a baby and gained some weight, my husband would leave me. It was all pretty unhinged. First, I was the cheater, and now she's gonna make sure my husband cheats on me? It's just confusing. Anyway, I blocked that email address, and after that, I didn't hear from her. It was a bit confusing for a couple of days, but now I feel much better, not having to worry about her bothering me again. Update 3. I guess I celebrated too soon. Just 2 days ago, I was talking about how I thought Carla and her friends had finally decided to leave me alone. And today, they all showed up at my place and tried to bully me, but it didn't end well for them. So, a couple of hours ago, the doorbell rang several times. When I checked, Carla and all her friends were outside. There were about 6 of them, and they looked like they meant business. I immediately told them to leave through the intercom, or I'd call the cops. I was mostly worried about my baby. I just put her to sleep, and she'd been fussy all day. I didn't want to wake her, and I knew if they were all here, they'd be fighting and arguing, and I didn't need that. I told them to leave, and was about to go back to my room to get my phone when one of them had the bright idea to pick up a rock from the lawn and throw it at the window. It came crashing in, and there were pieces of glass all over my living room floor. I was shocked, and soon enough, the other women followed suit. They all started throwing rocks through the window. I had to hide behind the couch because I was scared for my life and didn't want to get hurt. We have small decorative rocks in the garden bed, so there were a lot they could throw. I couldn't even go back to my room to get my phone because any movement while they were throwing rocks could lead to me getting injured. Even when my parents showed up to check out what was going on, I had to tell them to leave and go to the nursery and make sure that my daughter was fine, because that's all that I really cared about. This went on for almost 2 whole minutes, and by the end of it, my living room floor was completely strewn with bits of glass and rocks. It looked like a war zone. I didn't even have the courage to walk across the floor and go to my room because I was wearing just socks, and there was no way I could get to my room without having to walk, so I just stayed behind the couch and was literally crying because I was so scared. And then things went from bad to worse. I thought that they would leave after they had completely demolished my living room windows and made it absolutely impossible for me to leave to call the cops, but then they started banging against the door. I guess they would try to kick down the door, but thankfully they aren't strong enough for that, and while they were trying to do that, the cops finally showed up because I guess my parents had called them. I don't even remember much after that. It's all a blur. I left my parents to deal with everything because when the cops found me, I was still crying behind the couch, and I was obviously very traumatized from everything that was happening. The cops had to literally carry me to my room, and I kept crying even then, and eventually I just fell asleep while crying. I guess the adrenaline just wore off, and I crashed. When I woke up, Carla and her friends were all gone, and my parents had somehow managed to clean up all the glass and rocks that had been thrown in, but we couldn't be in the living room for long because the windows had to be repaired, and until then, the cold wind from outside would be entering the room with nothing to stop it. It was a mess. After I woke up, they told me that they were the ones who had put me to sleep, and I didn't remember it. But my mother had sat beside me while my dad dealt with the cops and pressed charges against Carla and her gang who had harassed us. They were furious. I've never seen my dad so angry. He's usually such a calm and gentle guy, but this really pushed him over the edge. They also told me that my daughter had woken up and had been crying because of the noise and rocks being thrown at the windows and crashing and stuff, but after I fell asleep, even she did. The last couple of hours after I woke up, I had been spending every single second with her, and I haven't even let her out of my sight for even 1 second. I just needed to hold her to know that she was okay. My dad told me that he was going to have everything repaired, and the living room would be back in use in a couple of days, so I didn't need to worry about that, and he had also spoken to my husband, and he was coming back this weekend itself, so that he would be there for me. He sounded so worried on the phone. I could hear the fear in his voice. I'm so grateful that my parents were here with me throughout this ordeal because I can't imagine having to deal with all of this alone. I just really can't. Today has been an incredibly scary day, and I spoke to my husband just now. He was very concerned about me, and he told me that he has spoken to a lawyer, and he's going to get it arranged for us to file a restraining order against Carla and her cronies. He's taking this very seriously, thank God. Of course, it's unlikely we will have to see them again because they will probably never be invited to any family event ever again and might even end up behind bars for a couple of months. I really hope that it's true, because I don't even want to see these people again. I don't know what they were thinking or hoping to accomplish with the stunt that they pulled off today, but it's clear to me that they are psychotic and unhinged, and I just never want to run into them ever again. Update 4. Hello, I'm back here again. It's been several weeks, but this update has been long overdue. I got really busy with taking care of my baby, and I also had to go back to work. I'm working from home, but it still keeps me very busy. But there have been a considerable number of changes since my last update. Life has been, well, it's been a lot. First of all, my husband quit his job and decided to move back in with us on a more permanent basis because he said that he didn't want to lose out on spending time with his baby girl when she was so little. So he's going to try and build something of his own, and that's going to take a lot of work. But for now, he's just enjoying being a stay-at-home dad, and I couldn't be happier for him. It's been amazing having him home. He's such a natural with the baby, and it's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I didn't realize how much I was missing him, how much I needed him here, until he was actually here. I make enough for both of us, so I'm not worried, and my parents have also said that they'll help us out if we need it until he's able to get back on his feet, and are even going to invest in whatever he decides to start. We also have savings to rely on, so money-wise, we're doing pretty well. We're lucky, I know. Not everyone has the kind of support system we have, and I'm so grateful for it. My parents finally went back home a couple of weeks ago, but we have stayed in touch and we video call almost every day because they really miss their granddaughter, and I can understand that. It was hard saying goodbye to them, but I know they'll be back soon. And honestly, it's been nice having the house to ourselves again, just the three of us. And now, what happened to Carla and her friends who had messed me up really good the last time that I had talked about her here? So, all of them are serving time in prison, and will be there for the next 3 months. They were charged for their criminal activities and ended up with a 3-month sentence, a huge fine, and community service once they got out of jail. Obviously, they had to also pay damages for my windows, and I was able to get a restraining order against all of them as well. It's a relief, to say the least. I finally feel like I can breathe easy, like I don't have to look over my shoulder all the time. Thankfully, it seems very unlikely that after this, we will ever have to see them again, and I'm really grateful for it. Now it's just going to be my husband, me, and our daughter, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of months because this is what I've been missing for so long. This is what I always wanted, a happy, peaceful life with my little family. And now, finally, it feels like we're on the right track.